All right, once again, we are here with the homie Heem. How you feeling?
I'm good, sir. First of all, before we start, I don't know, you probably talked about this as well, but I want to say congratulations on the new addition to your family. Really happy for you. We had to take
Thank
a little
you.
hiatus because of that, but yeah, congratulations to you and your wife and to the new bundle of joy in your life now. So congrats, and all the best wishes upon her. Y'all gonna be great parents, and I'm just very happy that you brought another beautiful black child into this world.
I appreciate that, brother. I really do. Um, First child. I'm a little bit of an older parent now. I know I got this baby face, but I'm in my late 30s. So
The kid
uh,
will stress you out. It'll age fast. That's what
yeah,
they say.
yeah, yeah. But it is crazy how life can change so quickly. Like
Hmm.
she's only a week old. Literally, she was born 309 Wednesday of last week.
Wow.
So only a week old, but life changed dramatically within that week. It been a windstorm. So like everything is just like mushed together. Uh,
Hmm.
Times is mushed, but it been a great experience. It been a great experience. It's weird because she does look like me, so like
Oh,
when I pick her up, and I'm like seeing my face, especially from when I was younger her age.
wow.
This is really like this is kind of weird. It's different, but it's been an absolutely great experience. My wife is doing an amazing job right now. The only reason I'm able to do this show right now is my wife is up there doing what she do with our daughter right now. So
Hmm.
big shout out to my wife. Um, we've been, I think we have done a good job of teamwork because I
Good.
don't want everything to be on her. So when she need a nap, um, I'm watching her. When I'm tired, she's watching her. And, of course, more of the responsibility is on her because if you breastfeed, obviously, I can't do that,
Right.
obviously. So it's a lot on her, and you know, thankfully, she is doing a wonderful job. And because this is a political show, I'm always tying it back to a major purpose.
Hmm.
We are extremely lucky in the fact that we were able to get time off from our jobs. You know, um, she was able to take significant time off. I'm not taking quite as much or nowhere near as much time off as she is. Um, and that's to be expected as well. But I'm able to take, a good month off too to help her out around the house and, you know, get get some bonding in with the child. A lot of people is not in that situation. There's
Right.
people that having kids and having to go back to work right away. It's
Hmm.
already a stressful situation, but how you going to feed your family? How you going to feed your family? That's
Hmm.
why it needs to be, some of these issues need to be national. You can't depend on
Hmm.
the state when when you're dealing with something like family leave. You know, we should have a national policy about family leave. And even states like, because I think New York have a pretty good FMLA laws compared to other states. But even with that, it's a hit to salary. You don't get your full salary with it. I mean, it's better than zero because back in the
Hmm.
day, it used to be zero. You don't get
Hmm.
nothing, especially if you was a male or a father. But losing 40% of your salary is a significant hit. And sometimes, if you're making more than that, there is a max out. Sometimes it could be even more than that. So, I mean, it's good to get something, but it's definitely a stress on finances as well.
I really believe, and I never understand this. Every year we do these election cycles. Why that's never an issue? Never talked about like that. Like you
Mhm.
would win so many women over regardless whatever party, if you had like legitimate, like we're gonna have policies on family medical leave, especially for new mothers. that they
Right.
won't lose their job. They can keep all the salaries, and we'll give you so much time off. Is this country? It's bizarre how we've never even like that's not even like a national conversation.
It's crazy, especially if you're conservative. If you're a
Hmm.
conservative, you should be the main one for this policy because um, if you don't want women to get abortions, you should
Hmm.
make it as you should be as supportive as possible to make it bringing in a child to this world feasible for them.
Yep, I agree.
Stuff like family leave, stuff like childcare,
Yep,
they don't even talk about it.
just never talked about.
That's a whole nother issue. Child care is very expensive. I know Elizabeth Warren is talking about it. She got some proposals in the Senate. She trying to get a national policy when it comes to child care, which is cool. But even a lot of Democrats not talking about that.
Yeah, it's such an easy winner in my opinion, but it's never even like broached at all on a national level. It's
Right.
barely even broached on a local level. I know there's like a little bit of contention here in DC a few years ago about that, but it wasn't enough to change stuff. But man, like yeah, like it's such a winning conversation, a winning topic. I'm really surprised that progressives don't really pick that up as an issue to really like harp on, just like the family and how we can take care of the family unit just early on, not necessarily getting you know other stuff. Just like yeah, let's this is the gateway into like true progressive policies, and it's just not talked about.
At all.
It's very weird,
Mhm.
but that's just
Yeah.
this country
And,
sometimes.
and don't get me wrong, she's not perfect. I have a lot of criticisms of Elizabeth Warren as well. But one of the reasons why I supported her in the primaries was because she talked about these type of issues that
Mm,
I feel like a lot of other politicians and even other progressives don't talk about. Prime example, what we were just talking about right there.
mm-hmm,
She's one of the only people that's really bringing attention to this subject. I know right now in the COVID relief bill, they do have the child tax credit, which is a step in the right direction.
mm-hmm.
Um, I appreciate that, but yeah, more attention need to be brought to these type of issues. And just before we got on the air, we was talking about how we definitely need more Black people in the healthcare industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's been multiple studies. You can look it up. I hate when people just say studies too, but but there's been credible university studies as well.
Right.
Study you're talking about, is it from a credible organization? But no, there's been peer-reviewed studies. There have been studies from universities talking about the discrimination and the difficulties that Black patients face in the healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
um, mainly because a lot of providers um, don't take some of our complaints seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a ton to get into that. Like when we talk about babies being born, there's evidence that suggests that Black women get prescribed C-sections more than other ethnicities and races. There's a lot of issues that going on with healthcare and the type of um, and the type of care that we receive, and we definitely need more of us in these fields, and that's something that I want to work on in the future.
Or I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
All right. And speaking of healthcare, we're going to talk a little bit about that later with COVID, with the vaccine. I know you got some strong feelings on that, so we're going to get into that a little bit later as well.
All right.
All right. So I titled this, of course, Polly with Us, but also more than the minimum. What do that mean? More than the minimum. Now, when you do the minimum in anything, it usually come back to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the minimum is just barely getting by,
Mm-hmm.
barely getting by. So we need to do more than the minimum in this current Congress and in this current administration.
I agree.
And also relating that to the minimum wage discussion as well. I'm a battle rap fan. I got to hit you with those doubles on entendres, you know, pod god stuff, pod god. But yeah. And another reason I'm calling this more than the minimum as well. Actually, it might be a triple. But no Westbrook. He can't shoot triples. Wizards fan. Wizards. Nah,
I'm barely a Wizards fan this year, man. Go ahead. I'm barely a Wizards fan.
But
I watched like 2
nah,
games.
another reason more than the minimum fit as well. This fight for the minimum wage, in my opinion, is not just about this specific policy. It's about the signs and the signals that this particular fight gives. This should be an easy one. The $15 minimum wage should be an easy win. The overwhelming majority of American people support $15 an hour minimum wage. I mean, even most Republicans support this. Easy win. So how do you blow such a easy win? And let's get into something else that I know you are passionate. I'm just going to give it to you in a second. I'm going to let you run.
Go ahead, man. Do your thing. You got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'm going to let you run. I'm going to let you run with it in a second. I'm going to be right now. I'm setting you up. I'm Tannehill. You about to be Derrick Henry in a second. I'm going to give you the ball. I don't know if I want to be Tannehill though. He's all right.
Don't be Tannehill. Tannehill kind of sloth, but yeah, I hear you though.
That's neither here nor there. Y'all. But yeah, how do you blow such a easy win? Yeah, I wouldn't be bugging over it too much. If the Democrats was talking about getting rid of the filibuster, but they're not talking about that because they talking about putting the vote up for a separate vote for the minimum wage. That's not going to work unless you get rid of the filibuster. Now, I know Bernie abandoned that plan, and now he trying to add it to the Senate bill as an amendment. And you hearing reports that other Democrats don't like it. They get upset because they don't want to have to vote on it. Why don't you want to vote on it? It's an easy win. Is it because of the Chamber of Commerce? It's amazing. And the fact that you can lose on this is a bad sign because, again, it's popular. And if it doesn't happen now, you might just say, okay, the administration only been in office, a little bit over a month, maybe a month and a half. But you have to understand, it's a very small window to get things done right now. Very small window. The Democrats more than likely would lose the House.
And,
if nothing else happens, if the same amount of people vote in these congressional races that voted in 2020, Republicans win because they gerrymandering. They're attacking voting rights right now. That's a huge story. So it's going to be very difficult for the Dems to keep the House. And historically, whoever is in the White House rules the congressional races. So really, you got maybe a little bit over a year because, in 2022, once it started getting ramped up into campaign season, not a lot of things going to get passed anyway. So we don't have a lot of time.
Yep.
So unless you get a lot of stuff done these first few months, it's not going to happen. And the fact that you can't get this done, the fact that the public option is not even being discussed at all. This is something that Biden campaigned on. I know there's been a discussion about Medicare for all. We knew that Medicare for all wasn't going to happen under the Biden administration, but he specifically campaigned on public option. No talk of public option at all. You're just talking about, subsidies with the ACA. Did you mean that? Why isn't more progressives on Biden's head, at least about the public option? There's a lot of things to discuss. So I know I went on a little tirade, but talking for a minute, So go ahead, Derrick Henry. Go ahead, run with that right
That's a
now.
lot of stations, man. So you
Yeah.
laid out a lot of things there. It all comes back to Biden doesn't care about this stuff. That's just what the gist of it is, man. Like the Biden doesn't care about it, and the Dem leadership doesn't care about this stuff. Um, when like people like, all right, so the $15 minimum wage thing, whenever it's like was a referendum of it, it wins. Like I remember last year during the election, I was very critical of Joe Biden losing Florida to Trump because and the Democrats got obliterated like in Congress and stuff in the different state seats. And they got like they lost so many state seats and stuff in Florida. And it's like but at the same time, $15 minimum wage won by like 20%, 20 points in Florida. So they won $20. They won a $15 minimum wage, and yet none of the Democratic candidates decided to run on that. Biden didn't run on it in Florida. That would have been a layup. You would have definitely taken votes from people that did it because Trump wasn't going to say he wants $15 minimum wage. He doesn't care about that at all. You know, the Republicans, especially in the state of Florida, don't. But Biden never broached that at that level. It's the Democrats know how to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That's the way I kind of think about them. They don't serve the will of the people. They don't really serve their voters much at all. There are so many. They keep harping back on this whole like, well, the CBC, the CD, whatever it's called, the Congressional Budget Office, CBO.
Mhm.
Is so like, well, they say we're gonna lose like this amount of jobs or whatever, and this, but the number that people didn't want to look at was like the 1.4 million people that would be left out of poverty. You know, I'm sorry, I think that's a pretty good thing. You know, and the other thing too is that one thing I really like think about now with like the Democratic Party, they won the suburbs last year. Biden won the suburbs last year over Trump, so they won the white suburban vote, and that's where the party is now. They care more about that vote, that fickle ass white suburban vote more, affluent white suburban vote more than anything else. These people change their mind every 2 years. They'll vote for racists in 2016 and then be like, well, this racist, I didn't know he was racist. Let me go ahead and vote for these Dems in 2018. That's what they do. So they're not a reliable voting block. You have reliable voting blocks in concentrated black areas, Latino people, Asian people, people that aren't affluent. They're the people that you rely on, and Democrats are running towards those white people. And I guess I get why affluent white people. And I guess I get why because that's where the money is. That's where you can get donations and so forth. But man, like $15 will change so many lives. The pressure that you have on you pressure that you have on you when you're not making a lot of money and you're looking at bills, you're looking at, you're talking about, you just had a child, somebody had a child and they're working a couple jobs and they aren't getting paid minimum wage or getting paid a decent wage. The pressure that puts on you is it leads to so many like poor health outcomes. And the fact that they're not even like really going hard at this, it just shows me that they don't really care about $15 minimum wage. It doesn't. I know the House passed it with a couple of objections from the Democratic caucus down there. But do you really believe Nancy Pelosi really cares that much about $15 minimum wage? Like honestly, like I'm just being real. I know she voted for it, but do you think you really care? And then the fact that people upset at Bernie Sanders for putting it up to the vote, which is what they do. Like, what are we doing here, man? Like, you're making us make a decision that we don't want our constituents to know that we that's the whole problem with our political system in general is that they want to do stuff within the shadows and in the dark while they're in the light saying, hey, like I didn't that outcome, it wasn't my fault, even though they made all the machinations to make it so that it isn't to be. And it's frustrating. Like it's the most frustrating thing I've seen. That wasn't Derrick Henry energy. I'm sorry, but it's just exhausting to continue seeing these people continue saying like, yeah, we don't really care about helping people's lives. We don't really care about improving people's lives. It's such an easy win. Even citing like the parliamentarian who's not an elected person, and who there's rules there that you can say like, yeah, screw the parliamentarian. We can go ahead and do this our way, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to have uh, um, Vice President Harris override the parliamentarian's decision, which is her right as the president of the Senate. She won't. They're not going to ever do that. It's just like, what are we doing? Like, do y'all actually like what is? I need to know the poll numbers that say that we're not going to have 15,000 minimum wage. I need to know like what's the consciousness of this. Is it? Are you really that beholden to your donor base that much? And
They
you
are.
really think that you can? Yeah. You think you can really win the white suburban vote that much? That that's what's going to win you. That doesn't work, man. Like, and not only that, you're going to lose so many people that would have come out to vote for you because you don't do things to enrich their lives, and it's just frustrating because this happens every fucking year. You know what I mean? And you said it. And the other thing too, that, and I'm now, I guess I'm Derek Carey now. The other thing too is you know, you mentioned the time frame. So the reason why it's hard so much that first 100 days that you got to do stuff is because that's like realistically the only time you can really pass like meaningful legislation like during that first term in the presidency, because uh starting and like, you know, you have your the fiscal year ends in September 30th for the government, and then really like the rest of the year these people go on holidays all the time. They're never in office. You know what I mean? So they're never in office like that. So from uh October a little bit until like, you know, maybe like Halloween they're working, and then after that it's like Thanksgiving break, uh the Christmas break, the, you know, I'm just lazy and don't need to do anything break, the I need to talk to my donors break, the need to pretend like I care about voters break, and so forth. 2022, nothing's going to pass next year because there's so many like stuff. Oh, and now we have an election coming up, so now we have to do this. So when they say 100 days, they harp on that because that's the time you're supposed to really start passing meaningful stuff. And the fact that there isn't any serious discussion on removing the stimulus, they like you said, they haven't talked about public option, which I thought was a big voting point for Biden, and he ran on a lot. The fact that they're playing games with this minimum wage stuff and the COVID relief plan in general is just like,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
exhausting, man. Like you can only like just excel and be like, what the hell's going on?
It's crazy. Yeah, it might not have been quite Derrick Henry, but you had that Curtis Martin
I'll
energy.
take that Hall of Famer. I'll take
A Hall of
that.
Famer. You know, he wasn't flashy, but
Nah,
got the job done, hit the holes where he
yeah,
really
man.
needed to, and hit
First ballot Hall of
all the
Famer.
points.
That's right.
All the points, you know. So yeah, Curtis Martin, that's not an insult. He was a pretty good running back.
I'll take that.
But yeah, and you hit on a lot right there. One of the things that is amazing to me is you have some of the moderates like mentioned. Does he think $15 an hour is not popular with the majority of West Virginians?
Right,
Uh,
right.
maybe it's not popular with the Chamber of Commerce in West Virginia, but with the regular people, I'm sure they don't mind that. So
West Virginia
I
is one
don't
of the
know
poor
why.
states in the country. It's one of the poor states in the country.
Right,
They have like I think they're like consistently like in the bottom like 10 or 15 in per capita every year. Consistently. It's one of the
right.
poor states in the country. You have an industry that's dying that they want to prop up in coal. Every year it's like this. You think they don't want 15 hours? And you know what really pisses me off about this as well is that they talk about like, well, the cost of living in West Virginia is 15 hours is way too much. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing to have somebody like live good in your state? Maybe people will start moving to your state if you have a good cost of living. If $15 can buy like you know, a house and a car and so forth in West Virginia and be able to feed your family of like 3 or 4 in the state, why is that a bad thing?
Right, right,
Why is that a bad thing? Maybe people will start seeing that and see West Virginia as a state that uh you may want to go to and live at. Why is that a bad thing?
right, right. And why does he only want a means test on one side too? Um, for example, he's not for $15 an hour minimum wage. He claims that, West Virginia, cost of living, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to direct checks, 80,000, because the new adjustment they make in this current COVID relief bill is that if you make it starts to phase out at 75,000, and if you make over $80,000 a year, you won't get a check at all.
Are you
That's new.
serious?
Yeah, that's the new adjustment. That's the adjustment the Senate made. It just came out today.
So I missed that
Yeah,
earlier, y'all. So I apologize. But wow.
yeah, yeah. And Biden is giving his
I
support
mean,
to.
I think
Biden said he letting the Congress work it
so.
out.
You're
That means,
freezing. You're freezing a little bit on my end. I don't know if I'm freezing on your end.
oh no,
Like
you're not freezing.
you're
I'm
frozen
freezing.
now. You're good. You're freezing a little bit. Am I freezing to you?
No, you was good.
Okay, you're freezing a little bit on my end. Sorry.
I'm still freezing.
You frozen.
I'm froze.
Yeah. You now you're back, but you're frozen now. Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Hi everybody. Little technical difficulties, but we'll be back on it.
I am I good?
You're good now. You're good.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I know my pretty
Now you're
face.
frozen again.
You can't be serious. Like,
Yeah, man. Like I thought it was my connection, maybe.
see, I'm not frozen on my end either. That's crazy.
So am I? I'm not frozen at all on your end.
No, give me 1 second though. I'm going. I know the way. I know the way to check right now. Bear with me.
Okay.
We're gonna get together.
Yeah, we always
You
do.
know,
Yeah.
Harlem Hospital was giving beds out. Harlem Hospital was giving beds out. Reaper Diamond, Harlem Hospital was giving beds out.
You don't want to know what you dropping lines there in gems, and I'm just like hearing like half of words.
Harlem Hospital giving beds out.
Harlem Hospital giving beds out.
Let me see. Oh, see, I'm checking us out live right now just to make sure I wasn't frozen.
Okay.
So let's see. So I'm gonna keep watching like this just to make sure. I think we good though.
Okay.
I think we good on our actually live.
Frozen again.
Yeah. See, I'm not frozen on the screen though.
Okay. As long as you're not frozen on the screen, it's okay.
All right, so I'm watching it. All right. So Harlem Hospital giving beds out. That's Vital Rat. That's Loaded Lux. I don't know if people understood what I was talking about when I said that, but anyway, yeah. So what I was saying with Manchin is he only wanted means test in one direction, right? So when it comes to the minimum wage in West Virginia, he claims that the cost of living there, they can't support it. But when it comes to direct checks, and they cutting off with the $80,000, and he said that he was the main one pushing for that. $80,000 in New York City is not $80,000 in West Virginia.
Absolutely not.
So does he support people that live in New York, California, DC to receive higher direct checks? Sure he doesn't, because he barely wanted West Virginians to get direct checks until people had to put their foot in his behind,
Right.
And then he kind of backed up off of that.
Even the
So
governor of the state, a Republican governor, was like, "Yeah, give us money." You know what I mean?
Yep. So it's crazy. Do Christian Cinema, does she think that $15 an hour in Arizona going to lose her next Senate race? Of course it's not. If anything, that will help her.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. It logically doesn't make sense. But then when you think about money in politics, when you think about the Chamber of Commerce already done had meetings with the Biden administration, when you think about the donations that these politicians get, then it start to make perfect sense why they don't support some of these common sense items.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you're concerned about small businesses, certain small businesses not being able to afford the $15 an hour, and there is some legitimate concern about certain mom and pop shops,
Mm-hmm.
you can subsidize it. You can subsidize it. The government can subsidize that. There's ways you can get around that. And I will support an amendment. Okay, you say, okay, I don't know about it might not work in my area because of this, and that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put an amendment out to help some of these smaller businesses, and we can help subsidize like we do with the ACA. I'm for that. You know, there's certain things we can do for businesses that really can't afford it.
Can I even bring it up though?
Go ahead.
All right, I feel like that's even disingenuous to be fair, because like
Mhm.
the minimum wage is phased in into 2025 or 26, I believe.
Right, but I'm not for that though. I think it should be that's one of the reasons why I'm for the subsidies. I think it should start earlier. Having that 2025 is ridiculous to me. But
I
yeah,
don't disagree with you. So, all right.
yeah.
So I'm not disagreeing with you at all. Actually, I mean, I think it should start tomorrow. That's just me.
Mhm,
But my point was more so like when people say the small businesses are going to suffer
mhm.
because of this. I'm like, wait a minute, but you have 3 years to figure this out. It's not starting tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it's like that to me. That point is disingenuous. You're not really what you when you say you're concerned about small businesses and failing and stuff. You know, if you don't plan to, if you fail when you don't plan, you know what I mean? So like,
Mhm.
if your business can't figure out how to uh, uh, uh make do with like in 3 years, figure out how to pay their employees $15 an hour, then it's like, wait a minute, like nah, your business was never like really up for it to begin with. And I know it sounds messed up and
Well,
so forth. And somebody can tell me I'm wrong. I don't know, but
well,
I don't know.
I think you're right with a lot of businesses, but in some, it is going to hurt, especially during this pandemic, because there's been businesses already, especially smaller mom and pop businesses that have been crushed by COVID and is
Hmm.
barely afloat right now.
And that's a
So
failure on the government because those loans and so forth that were supposed to go to them ended up going to like the Lakers and
yeah, I
boosters and
agree.
stuff. Yeah,
PPP was a failure, and I
yeah.
totally agree. The Trump administration totally bungled that, but still remains that a lot of these mom and pop shops are barely surviving right now, especially due to the pandemic. So with them, with those type of businesses, any little change could hurt. Now, is that a reason not to pass $15 an hour minimum wage? Hell no. You should still pass it. And like
Hmm.
I said, if some of these businesses are hurting, there is ways to subsidize that. You know, there's multiple ways you can do it. Like you know that old phrase where there's a will, there's a way.
Hmm.
You know, you can't just say, okay, some of these mom and pop businesses are struggling, so let's not do that. No, it doesn't work that
Yeah, help them
way. You
out.
pay people a living wage. No.
Yeah.
Also, they saying that it's going to lead to job loss, and a lot of it is window dressing because we already know a lot of these companies, like, because this all started with the movement in New York, right? With the
Hmm.
fast food workers,
Hmm.
and they saying that okay, that's going to lead to these companies laying off people and lead to automation. Automation was coming regardless.
Hmm.
Like, so the job loss is not going to be due to $15 an hour minimum wage.
Hmm.
A lot of these jobs is going away anyway because of automation. I mean, there's no way around that. It's coming. That's something we're gonna have to deal with in the next few years. That's a major reason why a lot of people started to support universal basic income or UBI, is because of automation. That was the main reason I support UBI for a lot more than just automation, but that's a whole different subject.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, that's a whole different subject. So I don't want people, we got to fight this narrative right now, that if it does get passed, which it looks like it's not going to, unfortunately, but somehow Bernie put it up and it do pass and some job loss start to happen, we have to fight immediately, be like, no, this was the direction that these companies was going anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I just this and I guess we're going to talk about the COVID plan itself, like the entire bill itself, but with this, and then you start seeing like the Voting Rights Act stuff that's coming up, and they don't want to push on. It feels like the Republicans, like they lost the presidency with Trump, but they're controlling things like it's business as usual, and the media is going along with it, and Democrats are going along with it. That's kind of it's bizarre feeling that I've been having the last couple of weeks. I feel like they've actually kind of won and starting to control things, even though it's not, them actually physically leading it and not on paper.
Right. And I have a bigger complaint when it comes to the media. I was talking about that with the homie Fa yesterday. By the way, Fa is younger than both of us, right? But
yeah,
his lingo was all jacked up. He actually said, "Oh snap!" yesterday. I almost kicked him off the show. Bruh.
Fa's a Terp.
Huh?
He's a Terp. We both Terp brothers. We both went to Maryland. Different times, obviously, but we went to Maryland.
Yeah. But if he ever says "oh snap" again, he's banned from this platform. Yo.
Yeah, you can't be saying that.
You can't say that. I was like, dude, what's wrong with you? But
it's a 70s black man do the give me 5 on the soul side type of talk. Right.
So we were talking yesterday about a variety of different topics, right? So oh damn, I forgot my point. How I forget my point that easy. I was trying to stall, right? I was trying to hit y'all with filler in my thought. What was we talking about?
We were talking about so I mentioned that I feel like the Republicans are controlling stuff. You talked about the media.
Oh, right. There
yeah.
I got it. Harvard Hospital giving beds out. Harvard Hospital giving beds out. All right. Did you watch that Loaded Lux versus Calico battle? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. That's the one seminal battle that got things on. Do I remember the lines from it? Unfortunately, no. Except for
okay.
Now, homie, gonna make me give you this work.
Right. So when I say Harlem Hospital giving beds out, Loaded Lux was cooking his first round. He ended up choking me. He got the rest of his rounds, and he kept saying Harlem Hospital's getting beds out. He kept walking around trying to get his round. So if I forget a thought, I'm just randomly say Harlem Hospital getting beds out. So
that's a good way to do it.
So y'all know what I'm talking about. People be like, why he keep saying that? So I just wanted to explain it. But Harlem Hospital giving beds out. But anyway, I mentioned with Fa yesterday, a lot of it is the fault of the media because they act like these are legitimate issues. They might bring up voting rights every now and then, but it's passing. And we need to take it back to the origin. We know for a fact conservatives don't want people to vote. Lee Atwater, if y'all familiar with him, he's on video saying it out his own mouth. And who was Lee Atwater? Lee Atwater was the head of the RNC.
Mm-hmm.
Out of his own mouth, he stated that they want as little people voting as possible because when more people vote, it's less likely they win. And he was talking about how to use dog whistles. You can't say black, but you could say certain things. Welfare queens, busing. You could start talking about certain things, and these are dog whistles that their voters will pick up on. Is red meat. They hear it, but they have plausible deniability. And the media act like this doesn't exist. The GOP, the RNC, apologized for using the Southern strategy in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
They admit to this, and the media just act like, oh, this have nothing to do with racism. No, no, no. Let's like we have to start calling a spade a spade.
I agree. I mean, shoot. You mentioned the voting rights stuff with Leo Atwater. He don't want people to vote. John Roberts has like been fighting 40 years to end the Voting Rights Act. And that's never really talked about. You see articles here and there for it, but that was like his fight since he was a clerk on William Rehnquist's bench. And William Rehnquist is
Yep.
like one of the most like conservative justices we've had, probably ever really. A lot of the advances of the 50s and 60s that were made with Supreme Court, Rehnquist like spent his whole entire like chief justiceship pushing back and removing like labor stuff and race and gender and so forth. Like he was pushing against that, and Roberts has been steadfast against like the Voting Rights Act, and has been trying to like remove it since probably since law school. I'm assuming
He didn't have multiple decisions already where he
mm-hmm.
didn't roll back the Voting Rights Act of '65. Multiple decisions already. The last one was in 2013.
Oh,
So
not just decisions. He was writing about this, like this is like papers and stuff. Like he was against the Voting Rights Act. It's not even like
right.
this is his passion. Like this is the thing he wants. And so, um, yeah, man. Like the media doesn't ask these questions or talk about this stuff. Instead, it's better to do with the Tapper strategy of calling balls and strikes or whatever nonsense
Yeah.
that he likes to say. Where instead of telling the truth, you try to like. When somebody tells you the sky is green, instead of saying it's untrue, Jake Tapper would say, "Well, he says the sky is green. How do you feel about that?" You know what I mean? Like that's no, you got to call it what it is, and that's not what corporate media does in this country.
Right. And it's a difference between writing papers and then carrying out. As I mean, he actually carried it out.
Oh, yeah.
2013. That's when a lot of these voter ID laws started popping up. They was doing it before that too, but that's when it heavily started to happen. There was no more federal oversight with these traditionally segregated states. So they running amok right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Roberts, they're hearing a case right now about the vote.
Right. Exactly.
So my thing is this with it. I wonder how Roberts is going to navigate this because he said in the past that it was no longer needed because of X, Y, and Z. Over the last few years, that's obviously not true. So he can't come up with that same reasoning now. But it might not matter because that's what he supports. And here's the messed up part. Let's just say Roberts do flip, right? Hypothetically. Because Roberts, from time to time, did surprise a lot of people with siding with the liberals on the court, right? Every now and then. Not too often, but every now and then he'll throw a little, okay, like, oh, I wasn't expecting him to vote that way.
Mm-hmm.
But even they get Roberts to flip, it doesn't matter because the conservatives got the court 6-3.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing. Even if one conservative judge do flip,
it doesn't matter.
Still have a 5-4.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so anything that reached the Supreme Court, I'm expecting a disastrous result.
Yeah, it's like a done deal now because of just the Democratic Party, the lack of concern about the courts and stuff, the lack of concern about all these things. So I mean, it's a party that loves to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and this $15 minimum wage thing is one. This mean test now for this new test now for again. So now people that thought they were getting checks before aren't going to get checks now. So that's another thing that they just skirted on. It just feels like I said before, it feels like the Republicans like won the election, even though Trump lost, obviously,
Yep.
and the Democrats supposedly won the Senate, so they can start doing good stuff, not like they told us they
Yep.
were going to do.
And
But it feels like they won because they're controlling everything is kind of on their terms, and
yep.
Democrats seem like they're okay with playing their game still.
Yep. And just to update people on the bill. So I already mentioned the $80,000 if you single. For couples, it's 120. So as a married couple, we make over 120,000. You're no longer receiving a check. And I know for some people that sound like a crazy amount of money, but you got to understand in certain areas. You live in DC. DC is
It's not a
very
lot.
expensive.
Not a lot.
120,000 in DC is not the same as 100. And we talking about for a married couple too. That's not the same as 120,000 for a married couple in Wyoming or Montana. I mean, it's so yeah, it's unfortunate. Places like DC, places like New York. New York is very expensive.
Yeah,
I
New York
mean,
is like, yeah.
like to have a decent spot there, you paying multiple thousands of dollars in rent. So yes, these people should get a check. But
Just isn't even the crazy thing is the check isn't even enough. Like that's if you want to really be honest with us, like that 1,400 isn't even like that much money.
we need a UBI. We need a UBI. But the other change is, well, it's not quite a change yet, but it could be a change. We don't know what's going to happen with it with the unemployment benefits. Manchin is fighting tooth and nail to lower it from 400 to 300.
Right.
But Manchin did say it's not going to be a deal breaker for him. So that they might actually be able to keep the 400 a week for unemployment. So
Joe Manchin is the most powerful person in the Senate right now. That doesn't even make sense to me. Has he passed anything meaningful at all during his tenure? Like anything that you can say this is like Joe Manchin's?
not to my knowledge.
This is America, man. Like this is the catastrophe that is the U.S. Senate. That Joe Manchin, a guy who literally hasn't accomplished much at all. Like people get on Bernie Sanders for whatever reason for not passing bills, even though like you can see his fingerprints on a lot of stuff in the Senate. People get on like whoever. Yeah, Joe Manchin, a guy who like represents a state that is a tiny segment of the populace. Who people forget in 2012 he didn't vote for Barack Obama and said he wasn't voting for Barack Obama. People forget that. Like people don't that for some reason that's like always glossed over with the Joe Manchin story. But he came out, I was like, yeah, I'm not voting for Barack Obama. Like I just don't think it's the right thing to do. For my personal whatever. And I know because he was running for election, and I want to say that same year as well. So that's probably why he did it. But he said he wasn't voting for Barack Obama. This man that has like no real accomplishments at all is the most powerful person in the Senate.
Right.
And then during his 4 years of the Trump administration, he voted for Trump Trump 70% of the time. This I don't need like this guy is a Democrat. This guy's a Democrat. He's the only Democrat that we'll have in West Virginia. I'm like, this guy isn't a Democrat. Like he's not at all like maybe. Well, you know what? I stopped saying that because this seems like that's what the Democratic Party is now. So maybe I'm wrong about that. But
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but Manchin is not the only one. He gets the most heat.
yeah.
I think Cinema just blowing hot air. I think she'll ultimately, if enough pressure is put on her, she used to be part of the Green Party. I think she go wherever the wind blowing. So I'm not even too concerned about her. But you have people like Mark Warner.
Mark Warner is another one. Yes, Mark Warner is definitely another one. He's one of those like business Dems.
Yeah,
that like isn't. Yeah. He
was one of the main senators pushing not to include direct checks in this coal release bill. He was like one of the main ones. So there's multiple corporate Dems. Tim Kaine, another one. What's up with Virginia?
Listen, when you're a state, that's the one thing I tell people. People think like, oh, Virginia's a blue state now. I'm like, well, I mean, they vote Democrat, but that's the state where people move to
Hmm.
from different parts of the country, and they move there because of money interest, because they working with like the defense lobbying industry and different like lobbying industries and stuff like that. And you know, that's like why Virginia's like a quote unquote blue state now, because people from around the country are getting government contracts to live out there. But like I'm a Marylander in my heart, so I'm not a big fan of Virginia just because of GP. But like, yeah, man, like that doesn't surprise me whatsoever that like two of the most like corporate and fiscally conservative minded senators in the Democratic Party are from the state of Virginia, and those two.
Right. And all right. So any last words for this topic before we move on to a little bit of foreign policy?
We're gonna 2022 people are gonna be like really surprised by how like much the Democrats lose next year based on like the movements that they're doing right now. Not just I just hope people are bracing for that, because yeah, they I don't know what the solution is. I guess you got to wait for the progressive generations to kind of grow up a little bit. Maybe like losing these seats next year will possibly do that. But that's like, but by that point, what will we have as a country after that? I don't know. So
All right.
we'll see. I know that
And
sounds depressing. I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean there is some good stuff in the bill, like me if I was talking about like the child tax credit,
Yeah,
that
that's very good.
the relief to state and local governments.
It's very big.
Direct checks, we didn't even talk about how it was really supposed to be 2,000, but he kind of finessed it to 1,400. But that's a whole.
Like
But
again,
overall,
a very easy victory that they decided like it wasn't worth winning.
yeah. Overall, that's still positive, and
Yeah,
the unemployment insurance expansion is positive. But
it's not retroactive though, is it? Is it going to be retroactive or not?
what's that?
Is it going to be retroactive to I think they were talking about making it retroactive to like unless I misread it, but I thought they were going to make it retroactive to like I think was it September or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. UI benefits.
I think it's through August, right?
Okay, let me.
Yeah, I think it's through August.
Okay.
So also, so it is some positive stuff in the bill, but it's not enough. I don't see them talking about the looming housing problems. Once the eviction moratorium is up, that's something that need to be addressed. So it's a lot of things that need to be done.
Is it, and are they still taxing people on UI benefits as well?
I didn't read that in the article, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anytime the government give money, usually tax. Like I found that out when I joined the military and received a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I was 18. I was thinking like, they offered me, I think $4,000 for 2 more years. And remember, I'm 18 first time. I'm like, $4,000. That's a lot of money.
Right.
So I did it, but I ended up getting 2,800.
See?
I was like, but it's the government, higher less than all. Right?
But not to dismiss what your situation there as 18-year-old getting $4,000, but
Yeah.
It's a little different. It's a little different when like you were receiving UI benefits after you lost your job last year during.
No, but that wasn't my point. My point was just like
Sorry.
when the government give you money, usually it is taxable. So that was the reason why I brought that up.
I hear you. I guess
Yeah.
what I'm saying though is that there was a talk about making sure that isn't taxable for people that got UI benefits last year, considering that it was a pandemic. There was like some talk about that. I wasn't sure if that was included or not. That's all.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, but I don't know. I haven't read it.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
usually with you get for the government, which doesn't really make sense to me. Like you would think it's more work to tax it when it's coming from them anyway. Take back the taxes. They might as well just give it the amount they want to give to you without taxing it. But who knows? I haven't read that anywhere, and I'm reading the bill, the actual House bill, on Congress.gov.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much like
yeah.
So I've been reading the highlights on different websites and reading and actually going through the bill itself on Congress.org. It's a lot to get through, man. It's a long, long bill. So I haven't got through that yet. I might, you know what? Once we get off, I'm gonna go back through. I'm gonna open up the document, press F1.
You've got a child, dog. Go ahead and worry about your child. Don't worry about reading this bill.
No, it's technology though. You can get right to the section you want.
That's true.
F1,
That's true.
tax, unemployment benefits.
That's
Get you
true.
right to that section.
That's true.
Go there.
Read
Technology.
that. Read that white tendency, baby girl.
Definitely. But anyway, foreign policy. Um, so the Biden administration have not had a good week when it come to foreign policy. Airstrikes in Syria, terrible. They kind of blown the Iran nuclear deal, which should have been another layup, considering you was part of the administration that made the deal in the first place. But
Yep.
the bombing to Syria kind of, push that back, if you can even get that back now. And then there was a retaliation where we think it's a retaliation that just happened in Iraq, where U.S. personnel was there. So not a good week. And something else interesting happened with Mexico asking the U.S. for the vaccine. I don't know if we gonna agree on this or not, but what was your feelings on that?
Well, I don't know, and also another thing that they messed up on as well was with the Saudi Arabia stuff with MBS too. I don't know if we're going to talk about that a little bit. We don't have to too much, but yeah,
Yeah. They acknowledge it, but basically say, yeah, they did it, but we're not gonna do anything about it.
But with the Mexico stuff, so I get the political side of it. We haven't vaccinated the nation yet, so why are we giving our supplies to Mexico or to poor countries? But I believe we purchased like 1.3 billion doses of these vaccines, and the American population is about 330 some odd million, 340 some odd million. So I'm not saying give it all away, obviously, or even like not have some in reserve, but I think the best answer really would be to open up the IP so that other nations can replicate the vaccine around the world. But instead, like when Joseph Salk discovered the polio vaccine, was it polio or smallpox? I always mix those two up. But when they discovered the polio vaccine, when they discovered the vaccine for smallpox, when they created penicillin and so forth, that was like a open source like how to make this vaccine so we can give it around the world. And because of that, we eradicated polio, we eradicated smallpox, and so forth, by allowing these corporations to hold it. And I don't know if you read about it, but in like Brazil and some other Latin American countries, Pfizer's been putting like crazy ass like terms of the agreement when they're selling the vaccine. Some of it where they're trying to absolve themselves of all responsibilities for any side effects that may come from it. I'm not saying that the vaccine has like crazy side effects. I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. That's not what I'm getting at. But the point I'm getting at is that um, uh, Pfizer wants to like be completely have no liability towards whatever happens to people that take this or how it's administered and so forth. And they're also like charging like crazy amounts of money for it. And to me, it's very important. And reason why I bring up polio and smallpox as like things that don't even exist now because we eradicate them through vaccination. It's important because these things mutate and these things like change, and we're seeing that now with like the UK variant, the South African variant. I think there's like a California variant now. We're talking about this potentially like a New York City variant, and so forth. The only reason why these variants are happening is one because people around the world haven't taken this as seriously as they should have, but another reason is we haven't been able to get vaccines rolled out in a speedy manner. And so when you have when you're not able to eradicate this, what happens is that these different viruses start mutating and becoming stronger and more resistant to the vaccines and stuff, which means that what should have been eradicated or could have been eradicated ends up being either we continue in this pandemic, or it becomes an endemic where every year we're going to have to get COVID-19 booster shots because there's a new strain of COVID-19 that's out there now that we can't send to. Now, Biden, I believe, said that he didn't want to give any doses to Mexico, because like he doesn't want to do that. He thinks it's it's the American first thing, which all of our presidents abide by anyway, even though Trump was the only one that was like loudly saying it. But when you don't vaccinate the global south, and you don't give like the stuff to Mexico when they need it, what's going to happen is that what happened when this thing all started was that people go on vacation to these countries, they pick it up and bring it back here. So you go to Cancun and you party, and you're out there on the beach doing your thing, and you're happy that you're vaccinated or not, or not vaccinated, or even not vaccinated, or whatever. And then you come back to your community and you spread this new strain to people that aren't either vaccinated or aren't aware of it, and it ends up like causing like damage and stuff. Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. I think Biden should give if he's not going to force these companies to relinquish the IP to the vaccine so that they can replicate it on their own, so that we can get people administered this vaccine around the world. Then at the very least, you should give some dose. I'm not saying give all of it, but some should be given to like poor countries, especially in the global south, because that's where the mutations are going to happen, and that's what's going to cause like so many problems for people. And that's how this thing that should have been gone is going to end up staying for a much longer time. And again, America first. So that's why he's not doing it.
Now, I'm not entirely sure about this. Maybe you know. Can the government force these companies to open up their IP?
I believe
Because
so.
the reason why I ask is I know when the ACA passed, there was changes to patents and some other stuff with Big Pharma. Because you remember Big Pharma, what the ACA gave about $80 billion, and part of it was the rights to expand their patents. I believe, was it 10 years to 15 years for patents? That was one of the provisions in the ACA. I'm not sure, along with that, whether there is protections on opening up IP or not. I'm not entirely sure. So I don't want to speak out of ignorance. I'm not sure. Do you know anything about that?
I believe, like, from what I've read, you can do that. Like, I've been reading different like government officials. Like, I'm looking at this thing now in Red de Blasio from New York saying that like Biden needs to like open up the patents for for it and all that stuff. I feel like you can do it in certain matters. I mean, we can read more about it, and if I'm wrong, please like correct me. But I've been reading stuff about this for a while. Like it's I didn't find the exact law for it, and I didn't cite the ACA, but I've been reading like people mention that that the patent can be like opened up for people to the government. Like Biden can actually like force the patent to be like a relinquished so we can vaccinate the nation. I haven't heard anything else that would be against that.
Yeah, the only reason I know, because I do remember at the time, Big Pharma did secure some protections when it came to patent rights and being able to get generics out there. But it could be provisions where you could do it with emergency situation.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm just not 100% sure. I've been reading conflicting information, but that's something we have to look up.
So I'm looking it up now. In the Defense Production Act, you're able to do that.
Okay.
If you issue like if you like make a statement in the Defense Production Act, you can have like the vaccine. Other companies like take the patent and mass produce like a vaccine, which yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, like when we go to war or whatever, like that's usually what happens. Like they start gearing their stuff for the war and sharing resources and so forth. So I think that's the same kind of like thinking.
Okay. Yeah. It just I think with the Biden administration with this, I know your thing was politics versus humanity.
Yeah.
I guess what they would argue, and I'm just playing devil's advocate with this, is that we won't be able to do as much humanity if it get flipped on us. So politics always is a part of it. you know how the GOP will flip that,
Oh,
especially
well aware.
yeah, especially um, the fact that not everybody in this country have been vaccinated yet. Now, what I think the Biden administration should have did is they shouldn't have said no and just been like, okay, we ahead of schedule with vaccinations. As soon as we get, the majority of our people vaccinated, yeah, we willing to do this instead of just a flat out no. You know, I think that's the way you can still keep in mind the politics because you got to keep politics in mind, but you can't be humane too. And the other problem, besides not just Mexico, you have countries in Africa,
Yeah.
South America, and just smaller, poor countries in general wasn't able to buy these doses. Most of the doses been bought up by, of course, the bigger, richer countries, or just the richer countries like Israel. Then bought and have a boatload of vaccines.
Yep.
They're not a big country, but they have money.
Mm-hmm.
UK got a bunch of vaccines, so
Oh, I think this is like Oxford and Astra's. I can't pronounce the company, but it was like a partnership with Oxford. I think they actually are like giving their vaccine to different countries around the world. But yeah, yeah,
right. So I just mean that they bought up that they
yeah.
have a bunch of
Sorry.
vaccines. So a few countries was able to get the boatload of it, and smaller, poorer countries are going to suffer because of it, especially if you're not willing to share. You know, that's just what it is. But it kind of like the same when we talk about these stories, you can almost rinse and repeat with these issues. It's a different policy, but the same results. Seem to be a theme with all these policies and problems.
The reason why I really want to talk on this as well is that this was a global problem, right? This is the
Mhm.
world having to come together and handle this. And so when the horrors of climate change start happening around the world, like this is how wars and stuff start, where people are fighting over resources and so forth, because we decide that like, yeah, you got to play the politics game instead of playing the humanity game. Um, I don't know. It's just like this to be the moment, and we've probably as a humanity, we've kind of failed in this the last year. But this is the moment we need to like really like start collaborating. And to me, um, I really believe that like if Joe Biden were to step up and say, all right, well, we're gonna do we're gonna vaccinate the world, U.S. and the world. This is gonna get you a Nobel Peace Prize. It's like these are the things that like legacy is built on. Like you're remembered forever. Um, Based on like stuff like this, where you just say like we're gonna do this and we're gonna help the world. This is how you like are one of those presidents that they talk about in history books in 100 years. You know what I mean? Like stuff
I
like
mean,
that's the way I'm thinking. You know what I mean?
Biden won't even get back into a peace agreement that he was vice president under.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I'm I'm not surprised. Let
Yeah,
me just put it like that. Um, and throughout his history, we talked about this before. Biden has been atrocious on a lot of foreign
yeah,
policy. He had, I think, throughout his history, he might have had like two bright spots in foreign policies. He was against the Libya bombings. That's a feather in his cap because that
yeah.
Libya is an absolute disaster.
It's a slave
Um,
state now. Yeah,
yeah, and he was against the apartheid government of South Africa. I give him that too. But other than that, almost every other foreign policy decision he's been disastrous with. So I'm just not too surprised. I'm not saying I agree with it. It's just it's almost it shouldn't be, but I'm almost no. Like my expectations for Biden is so low.
yeah.
It's so low, but somehow he able to limbo under my low expectations sometimes too. So I'm not expecting too much from them.
Hey, man, it's just again, these are layups. Like what we're talking about here are layups. Like this is like if LeBron was coming, to the rim on a fast break in like 2009 when he was at his peak athletically,
Right.
and instead of dunking it, like for some reason he threw off the backboard and it just missed it, like for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Like uncontested dunks. These aren't like the things we're talking about aren't like controversial or hard or anything. This isn't like even necessarily like a progressive or
Right.
whatever. These are just
And,
like the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And Biden's just like, no, I'm going to do the wrong thing.
and like I said, you can you can protect yourself politically if you smart. I just don't think Biden believes in this stuff.
No, he doesn't.
That's all he had to say was this, that we ahead of schedule. Um once our people is taken care of, we going to vaccinate the world. That's going to be, because it's going
and
to
that's
come
the
back to us
funny
anyway.
and that's the funny thing about it is that the same day that he says no to Mexico was the same day he was celebrating that we're going to be able to like have enough doses. We were ahead of schedule because I think it was like originally supposed to be July
Yeah.
that we are going to vaccinate most of the adults in the
Yeah.
country, but now he's saying it's
Correct.
May, at the end of
Mhm.
May. So the same day he says that, he's also telling Mexico, no, we're not going to give you the vaccines. It's just
Right, because he didn't have to start tomorrow. He
yeah.
just had a plan, set a time. Of course, make sure you are responsible for America. Of course, you got to make
Hmm.
sure we are okay first and we got our stuff together first. But like you said, this virus doesn't know any borders.
Right.
Um, and I think it is kind of going to end up being like the flu shot, something
Yeah, it's
that,
going to be an endemic.
which is unfortunate because it's so hard to get the vaccine right now.
Hmm.
Um, if you have to go through this every year, good luck. You know.
I mind blown, man. Like that's the only thing I can say about it. There's so many, and thankfully, I'm actually getting the vaccine this weekend because I have like a medical condition. So like the city is letting us get it earlier. So thank God. But but like but yeah, man. Like if we have to do this every year, and considering people who don't get the flu shot every year, for instance, that's an endemic. That's like an endemic we're still have been in since like 1919 that people would just kind of forget about. And people don't get the flu shot because they don't think they need it or so forth. Like we know how this virus is very easily communicable and transmittable, and how much damage it's done to not just to killing people, but also the long lasting effects of it, where people have like the long COVID, or worst comes to worst, they like start losing limbs, or they can't like breathe normally anymore. These are things that people are talked about as like a huge failing of it, and
Yeah.
for people not to want to get this vaccine, or we're failing to get people vaccinated in this country already. Like man, I can't even like it's hard for me to even like contemplate what this is going to mean like in
Yeah.
5 years or 10 years.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe we need to highlight you lose taste buds. People like to eat. So
You can't
uh,
smell your girl's hair anymore, or your woman's hair anymore. You can't like you know what I mean? Like just something to get people aware of how like scary this is. So
yeah,
yeah, I wanted to bring it up because I'm like this is like a huge, this is going to be a huge like foreign policy thing that isn't talked about like that, and is a layup that was lost. Like you could have won a Nobel Peace Prize if he like was
right.
able to do something like this.
It's crazy is I'm getting mine tomorrow.
Nice.
Because you know I was a veteran, so the VA hospital, they offering it now.
All
So
right. All right.
yeah,
Good.
I'm
Nice.
getting my first dose tomorrow.
Nice.
Not looking forward to the second dose because I heard, but
Yeah, I heard the
it
second
is
one
what
is a
it
scary
is.
one.
I'd rather
Yeah,
have one day than weeks of months. So
for
anyway,
sure. For sure.
speaking, let's stay on this subject. And the last subject of the night,
Mhm.
want to talk about race when it comes to COVID and vaccine
Hmm.
distribution. You hit me up yesterday about this topic. It sent me an article. I read it. Um, this might. I'm interested. I'm interested in this discussion because I think we might have a slight disagreement on this.
Okay.
Why don't you lay out your case for this?
So the article that's being referred to was written by Uche and Doctors Uche and Oni Blackstock. They are like I think they're like biologists in like New York, and they wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post a couple weeks ago urging, because of like the case, because like COVID-19 has like wrecked the Black community in America, Latino community as well. Um, they were urging that the colorblind approach now that we have, where people in specific age groups are who should be vaccinated, and because of that, it hasn't worked. It's not going to work because of how much damage is done to these communities. And so they argued that instead of just keeping the colorblind and saying like between this age and if you have these conditions and so forth, lower the age limit for Black people to, I think like they said, 10 years younger in the article. So instead of like in many states it was, or the CDC guidelines said it was 65 and above. So they were urging lowering it to 55 and above for Black people, because of how much like it's damaged our livelihoods, like lives, and also because I think it's like we already have like a low life expectancy to begin with, and yeah, lowering it will immediately like lead to more people in the Black community, especially getting vaccinated. And the cases that they brought up were in Canada, where the First Nations people up there, where they lowered it to reach that group, and they were able to get vaccinated at higher rates. And the Aboriginal people in Australia, they lowered it for them as well to get them vaccinated, and they were also vaccinated at higher rates. I read that and I was like, it's the first time I've actually heard this discussed at all in our media, and the only reason why I saw it actually was because I watch Democracy Now! Every morning, and I think Dr.
Great
Oni,
show, by the way. Not
yeah,
Make sure Amy Goodman. She's an OG in it.
she's an OG legend, yeah. And also I found out homie like her co-host,
Oh yeah,
uh
he's an OG too.
he's an OG. He's like a founding member of the Vice Lords in Chicago, which is dope. Yeah. And so yeah, so like so she was on there talking about that and saying that she wanted Dr. Blackstock mentioned that, yeah, we should lower it because of the cases in these countries. So I read the article and I was like, yeah, we're not hearing this, but this is a great way to get outreach to Black communities, because like right now the Black community is like amongst the lowest to get the vaccine, and it's because of availability, it's because of it being harder to sign up for it and so forth. And so yeah, I think it's a good idea. I know it would lead to a lot of political pushback because you can't give Black people stuff in this country. But
That's a
uh,
fact.
and some Black people would even not want to give Black people stuff as well. But that's a different conversation. But
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but
Coming to
yeah,
America
man,
coming out Friday 2, part 2.
for sure.
Uh-huh. I won't touch on that. Yep.
But I thought it was interesting, and I struggle. I can see why people would be against it just because of those reasons, but I think it's a good idea. And these sisters were like really on it last year, pointing out the cases of like Black people in COVID a year ago, when the virus first started hitting. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on it if you read when you read the article. But
I did.
I thought it was good.
I did. I don't completely disagree with it, but I don't know if it's minor disagreement. Let me just explain what I mean, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Hmm.
I think it would be better to target districts and neighborhoods that are most effective. And a lot of it will be Black neighborhoods anyway, for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is that a lot of Black people are funneled into urban districts. And we do have Black people in rural areas, but a lot of the high concentrations are in cities, doing these frontline jobs when it comes to COVID. That was one of the initial reasons that the rate among Black people is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Not genetically more culpable to contracting COVID than any other race. I understand the race they was talking about weather in the article. They was talking about weathering and with discrimination and some of the stresses that we face. That's why the infection rate in any other like health outbreak would target us more. And yes, I definitely agree that is the case, especially among certain neighborhoods. But we there's no evidence that just genetically we higher we will contract COVID more in situations. That's why I think it makes more sense to target neighborhoods. Like in New York State, right? I know each state is different. We have it by color zone, like red, yellow. And I think that makes more sense than to do it and just say, okay, Black people, you can get it if you're younger as well. And the reason why I said, aha, when it comes to that, as well as I do, some of the conspiracies that's out there. I think that would help to amplify it. It might actually do more damage.
You know what? Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We could still do the same thing, but marketing people, a lot of times, I think I include myself. I'm not a marketing genius at all, but I think sometimes us as progressives, we got to get better in the way we market stuff, to get the same result or close to the same result, but have less pushback, because we just say Black people, that it won't happen. I mean, or I think we did a story here. I know I covered it in Oregon when the state of Oregon was trying to give Black businesses in Oregon, because they were hit harder by COVID than their white counterparts. They got sued, and they can't even spend the COVID relief money because they got sued in order not to give Black businesses that money. So if you say that, first of all, they probably get challenged in court. Secondly, there's already a lot of conspiracies with the vaccine, and it's for a variety of reasons. Some legitimate, some is just ignorance, right? And me personally, I don't trust everything the government says, but I do look at evidence. People always go back to Tuskegee. We was talking about the disparity in the way providers care for Black people in the first place, and that's all true. But it doesn't mean that this COVID vaccine have a chip in it.
Right.
I don't know where they're getting that from, but have you heard that they putting a chip in you and stuff like that? And
before we got here, my wife and I were talking about this very thing, and she said, like, yeah, I've heard this chip thing as well. Like, she was like, she heard the chip thing that was just nonsense and crazy. So yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I put anything past our government, because the U.S. did all sorts of foul stuff that we.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it needs to be evidence based. Like there is no evidence that they put in a chip in, or they doing. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please finish.
Yeah, there's no evidence for that, and all the evidence I've seen, and like I said, I don't take the government word for it. I'm not seeing what people are saying with when it comes to this COVID vaccine. I understand some people just against vaccines, period. There was rumors, about the autism and vaccines. Then they were saying, it was another theory that the polio vaccine was causing HIV. We hear all this stuff before, and like I said, a lot of it is the U.S. government fault for being grimy and for doing unethical stuff. When you do unethical stuff, people go and jump to these type of conclusions. So I don't want to totally blame people for not trusting the government, because the government make it hard for you to trust. But I know it's a lot to ask. I wish people would start making decisions off of logical evidence. And what I mean evidence, not a YouTube conspiracy theory video, or learn how to check sources.
Right.
Um, like, and that's one of the things. Like, I was a social science major. I know people laugh at social science and they think it's a joke, but it does teach you reasoning skills and like how
Mm-hmm.
to vet stuff and checking sources,
Mm-hmm.
and not just saying that a few like outlets have is the only authority. No, even if it's not a peer review article, you can look for certain stuff and back it up for evidence. Learn how to research. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I hear you.
So, but so I don't disagree overall. I just think that that will lead to more conspiracy theories. It might lead to more of us not ended up getting the vaccine anyway. I think the conspiracy theory will reach a larger audience if they say, well, if they say black people, they like, why are they targeting us? You know,
Right. I hear you. I hear you.
that's my thought.
I think you're right. And it's funny you bring that up about location too, because the only reason why I'm able to get the vaccine earlier because of the health issue I have, but also um in DC they've been targeting people that live east of the river, which is the black part of DC pretty much now.
Yeah.
Well, East River and upper like uptown in DC as well. But like East of the River is like where a lot of black people live, and they have been targeting that community because they've been having low vaccinations, and uh, um, that's also where the bad like people with the worst health outcomes are. So they've opened it up just for these different the wards 7 and 8 in DC and stuff, which is like the again east of the river, which is like people know southeast and northeast and so forth.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I actually think that's probably like the best way to do it as well, is kind of target it like a geographical way and not necessarily say it, but just do it that way. I think you mentioned earlier, you said a lot there that was good, about the conspiracy outcome, and I think that's like another thing that's a very 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 legit point. Uh, the U.S. government has done horrible things to black people in this country. Have done horrible things to under privileged people in this country in general. With the crazy experiments, the crazy testing, they're probably still doing it now, honestly. But but
Yeah.
my thing is like the thing that made me realize this vaccine was okay. Uh, and this is gonna sound fucked up, and I hate thinking like this, but when I saw rich white people scheming their way to get these vaccines in different parts of the country, even
Yeah.
like here in the DC area, I'm from PG County, and so Montgomery County, the county over, is like where Potomac is, Potomac, Maryland, Real Housewives of Potomac. Y'all probably seen that show or whatever. Like they have like they used to have PGA tournament golf courses and so forth there. Like it's one of the wealthiest counties in the counties in the country. I think it's like in the top 10 every year. And it's like old money too, but it's like one of the wealthiest counties in the country. It's also a very diverse county, but people there, I guess they were running low on vaccines. So when they first started rolling this out, people there were going to PG County to get vaccinated. They were like going across the to a place they never go to in PG County and getting vaccinated. These are wealthy white or affluent white people that live in Montgomery County. Were getting vaccinated with the suburban, also pretty affluent but not as affluent black people in PG County, along with and poor black people weren't getting affluent at all in PG County, getting it vaccinated at all in PG County. And
Right.
so when I started seeing like that, and you started seeing people kind of scheme their way to get the vaccine, you started seeing how hearing stories about celebrities trying to get the vaccine and so forth early on, even though they knew it wasn't their turn. That should have been like the sign right there for people that like, all right, these people aren't going to like mess around and not get this thing in their blood. So why are you trying to fight it? Like, go ahead and jump on it and get it.
Yeah.
Because the people that are affluent are not just getting it themselves, but they're jumping line to get it because they want to go back to normal as well.
Yep.
So I hope anybody that's like, on edge about the vaccine, first of all, like you said, read up and read up on what you're sourcing. I know a friend of mine actually a while ago had sent me like a video with it in there, like some anti-vax stuff in there, and saying all this, and I had to explain to him, like, you realize, like, we don't get smallpox and polio anymore, right? Like, people don't get that anymore because of vaccines, and kind of
Right.
that's the other thing too. There needs to be a better education on vaccinations in general. I think because we get it so young and we're not like aware of it, and because like I, probably like Mitch McConnell, like the last person in America that's ever gotten polio. You know what I mean? Like people like that age are older and dying, um, or dead and so forth. They don't know that like smallpox and polio were like life ending or life altering diseases that aren't here anymore because of vaccination.
Mm.
And and we don't think about that as people our age or a little bit older, because that happened so young. We weren't even born when that happened. We're even Our parents were probably even born when that stuff was like a thing, and then we were vaccinated so young that we don't even know what that looks like or feels like. So getting this vaccine and getting it into to as many people as possible, especially like Black people, if we can do it in like in a coy way with using locations and using other metrics that are like coyly saying like Black people run out here and get it. That's great, because we're affected by this by a much higher rate, and it needs to be like really like figure out and exploit it. So
Right.
I think you're right about like not explicitly saying like Black people should get this, but there should be a way that um, more Black people are getting vaccinated,
Yeah.
more Latino people as well, especially people that work in like jobs like grocery store people
Bus
and frontline people.
drivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bus drivers. That I mean, shoot, you can even, if you want, you can say like that, or you can just say like, yeah, people that work like train operators or bus drivers or grocery store people should be like a higher face, and knowing that that skews towards people of color, yeah, let them, Black people especially, let them go ahead and get vaccinated, because that's like where it is. You know, yeah, I just hope that you know when the opportunity comes up, we take it, but I also think it's a good idea to figure out how to skew things to make it so
Yeah.
that the people that really really need to get this need to get this.
Yeah. And we about to get out of here, but I just want to touch on conspiracies just one more time. Like I said, there's a fine line um in conspiracies and being skeptical
Yeah,
and then just being naive. Like you don't want to go the Alex Jones route. And what kills me is that you actually have Black people, well, maybe not as much anymore, but before Trump, listening to Alex Jones, and he'd been a white supremacist.
yeah,
You know, like get information from some of these, some of the sources that we getting it from um, are white supremacist sources as well. That's number one, and it could get dangerous. Like when COVID first popped off, right? I was arguing with one of my friends.
I think I know what you're gonna say. I'm listening.
Yeah, he was really trying to tell me that Black people couldn't get COVID. And I was just like, what makes you think that? I'm like, first of all, and it goes back to, again, being able to reason. I'm like, knowing sample sizes, knowing
Hmm.
outliers, knowing
Hmm.
outliers, knowing variables. You cannot make a determinative decision off of limited data. You can come up with a hypothesis, but to conclusively say that Black people can't get it when there was so few cases, known cases anyway, by then, it just outright crazy.
Yeah,
But you have people believing that, and I just don't understand because they get it from crazy sources. They get it from sources, and then people don't want to change lifestyles too. So sometimes it can get dangerous. And don't get me wrong, I believe in some conspiracies, just off of evidence that I have, objective evidence. I'm like, okay, I think there's something there. Like, let's just say the JFK assassination. Do I think it was just Oswald? No, I think there's a little bit more to that, but there is evidence to support that. I can't say conclusively what it is, but
Hmm.
that's one I could say like, yeah, that was probably a little bit deeper than that. And I could be wrong, but that's like a conspiracy that I'm like, okay, it might be a little something there. But like then there's other conspiracy. I'm just like, it's just so hard to prove and there's no evidence. And like they want you to prove like they want you to prove something that's not there. So you trying to get me to come up with evidence that's something that don't exist.
Right. You can't argue against that, man. There's nothing.
Yeah.
You just I it's a that's a very what you're bringing up about conspiracies and this thinking that we have now is a very very like dangerous thing, especially since like um people aren't very like you mentioned earlier, they aren't really media literate,
Mhm.
and so they're not able to like verify sources because they're not people aren't taught that. Like I was also in social sciences as well, so like I always roll my eyes, but yeah, like I appreciate my uh uh my professors like saying you can't use this source because it's not peer reviewed. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
this is critical. Like this is how you make sure that like things are actually true and are right. And a lot of people unfortunately don't get that same education drilled in their head that they need to like verify what they're reading. So when they see something that's like nonsensical put out there and they can link to a website that's saying the same thing with no backing, and it's like 10 other websites that are saying the same thing text for text. People think that's like verified when it's not. Like there
Or
has
they
to be
use
something.
Wikipedia as the end all to be all, which I'm not against Wikipedia because you could get some quick knowledge on there.
Yeah,
You definitely can, but you know, some of those sources not verified when you read some of those articles. You
and
know,
that's why that's and they are, and to be fair, Wikipedia they let that be clear. Like here are sources you can check
you do
yourself. They don't like try to like get over on people and stuff. But the problem
right.
is that people aren't they 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 see this and they don't like look deeper and so forth and see is that for real or not. And
Mhm.
I think that that's like a very very dangerous thing. So with this vaccine rollout now and people in our community, they're like you said regurgitating right wing talking points that they don't know where it came from because they haven't like really done enough to see where it's coming from.
Right.
It's very concerning, but
It
I
is.
that's something that
And,
I really really like fear going forward with just the state of
it,
society in general.
and the whole thing with the chip, what I found funny about that, I'm like, they wouldn't need to do that. Like we monitor all the time. There are
Yeah,
cameras everywhere. First of all, there's literally now over the last I don't know what decade or so, there's literally cameras everywhere.
yeah, man,
On top of that, this right here, if you
yeah.
have one of these, they can track you. If you
We're
have a
on
license or any type of ID, most of them got chips in it now. They can track you through that.
we're on the internet. Like, what are we doing?
They looking up this conspiracy stuff on the internet.
Yeah,
Right, right. Like they can't track your browsing history. Um, but
I
and that goes to the other thing that this is not conspiracy. We definitely gotta get out of here with it.
all
But
right,
about to chef it up, in the kitchen. They call me chef boy. I mean,
my
shout out.
man.
But we are overwatched. It goes back to Snowden, the NSA,
Yeah,
data centers, is the Patriot Act. Um, and these are not conspiracies. This
that's
is yeah, right, right, right. I mean, so don't get what we saying messed up to people that are listening. Like, we're not saying trust the government. No, we're not saying that. We're just saying that, just be careful where you're getting your information from. And, let's try to get better at reasoning. That's it.
and yeah, man. Like you brought up like all these other stuff that are actual like legitimate things that are glossed over all the time
Right.
by the same people. Like these are
Yep.
actually like real dangerous things that aren't conspiracies. They're done right in the open. Like they don't have to. In a lot of cases, they don't have to do that. They're just gonna do it, and you'll
Right.
you'll see it, and it's normalized. So Yeah, man. Just trust your choices. Make sure you're verifying your stuff. Don't believe the first thing you read, and yeah, man. Just and like I said before, we're both getting vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. It's just very important.
Yeah.
Like you want to see your family again. It's like the biggest thing.
And you know what's crazy about that? I was hesitant to tell people that I am gonna get the vaccination because
Hmm.
there's some people that just won't mess with me now because they that passionate about it. Not
Uh,
people I know in real life, but just like building the station. There's people that's so passionate about that.
hmm.
They will say that we are, I don't know, but sellouts or stooges is crazy. And like what I'm telling people, I'm not telling you to get the vaccine. I think you should, but at the end of the day, we are grown people. You gotta make your own decisions. So I even with voting, I never told people you had to vote. I
Yeah.
gave them reasons why I think you should vote and reasons why I'm voting. But I never wag my finger and tell people exactly what to do. But some of these very same people would do that with me when it comes to these decisions. So,
Right.
you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is
All
what it
right,
is.
great show again.
Oh, for sure.
Probably with us. Make sure you subscribe to the station, the channel, I should say, share, all that good stuff. And we'll be back with y'all next week.
My
Peace.
man. Take care.
Yep.